But you wanted to go to trial. You're like, fuck a pardon, we're going.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, dude. We were like, no. Once we get these little turds on the stand, these accusers, people are going to see right through this shit. So many lies.
A blatantly falsified version of the Eddie Gallagher case as its example. The Navy's own court-martial acquitted Gallagher of these charges. The witnesses lied under oath.
There is the court of public opinion. There is the court of regular courts that you deal with, and you get your day in court. If you believe in that, Eddie Gallagher, the former Navy SEAL, retired chief petty officer that was on trial for war crimes and was acquitted of all those with a jury of his peers and all that, it was shown he was not. And there's a lot to go on with that. But Eddie Gallagher has now since retired made Pipehitter Foundation, various others out there essentially that where he has been an advocate for other people. But now he is still dealing with the ramifications of current day societal public scrutiny.
They just fucking lied to the entire SEAL community to pin this guy's ass to the wall. A lot of people still hate him.
You had his lawyer, Tim Parlatore, on your show. Without the kind of legal defense that he got. I mean, they got the other guy to admit that he killed him in the last day of trial.
Yeah, it wasn't even him.
Wasn't even him. So
you didn't even kill the ISIS fighter.
So it's Eddie Gallagher or Clint Lawrence or the Raven 23 guys.
I mean, those guys were, one was going, Nick Slatton was going to prison for life.
For life.
And the other three, I believe it was 35 years.
And is even dealing with it in the black and white of the U.S. Navy still, as they are teaching people about him and using him as an example. Now, Eddie Gallagher shared this post on his Instagram where on the top of it, it says the Chief Petty Officer Development Course. And it talks about here the ethical paradigms versus loyalty and truth here. And it says truth-based decisions are grounded in facts and reality, while loyalty reflects on our duty or allegiance to other people, organization, and mission. Before we move forward, the top of this is important. Chief Petty Officer, E7 rank in the Navy equivalent for you guys in other branches, essentially is a requirement for these people to go through. So they would have had to all been taught this to move up in the next ranks and go forward. So every person at this rank is being taught this. They say one example of this dilemma is the case of Navy SEAL Chief Eddie Gallagher, who was involved in a controversial incident. In 2019, members of Navy SEAL Team 7 faced a truth versus loyalty dilemma when they reported their chief, Eddie Gallagher, for war crimes, including killing an ISIS prisoner. They prioritized truth, upholding military values and accountability over loyalty to their leader and teammate. This decision caused division within the SEAL community, but reinforced ethical standards within the community. Can we talk about how many things are very misconstrued on a factual basis of what has come from this case? Can we just acknowledge it is fact that Eddie Gallagher's teammates, the ones that were on trial testifying against him, got immunity to testify against him? It is fact on the court record that one of his teammates that was saying he did all this stuff admitted they did it. And it is fact that it is acquitted Eddie Gallagher of all of this. So to use him as like this prop of it's the right thing to do to tell on people to do that. What I also find hilarious is the social cultural aspect of this, of like the military has been known to harbor camaraderie and being for the boys and being there, you know, and I think where this fails of like annotating is, where does that line sit? When should you? Right? Like that is something that is really a good discussion point. But I think using Eddie Gallagher and stating it in this way of fact that this is a good way, kind of neglects the total details and entirety of it, and still paints Eddie Gallagher in a bad light from this. And that's not the only thing from this page that I think is really interesting. Below that is about Captain Crozier. We're going to get to Eddie Gallagher's lawyer response, but I want to at least make a little adjacent note of this. Say individual versus community. Individual-based decision prioritizes personal rights, desires, and needs, while community-based decision focuses on holistic needs, stability, and success. One example of the dilemma is Captain Brett Crozier's 2020 deployment experience during the COVID-19 pandemic. It says Captain Crozier, the commanding officer of the USS Theodore Roosevelt during the COVID-19 pandemic, raised concerns about an outbreak on his ship, and a letter advocating advocating for his crew's safety. He prioritized his responsibility to protect all sailors within his command over adherence to operational security and loyalty to his chain of command. As an individual, his decision led to his removal as the ship's commanding officer and later on cost him his career. Do we think Captain Crozier just made these statements and leaked them to some public source without talking to leadership and admirals during this time? Probably not. It was like, hey, we have people that are very sick. You're telling me that this virus is very dangerous, because that's what we knew at the time. He also knew, talking to the medical staff and things like that, there were people advising him. They did not have the resources or the manpower to handle that if somebody could have died, because we were still thinking a lot of people were dying because of this and other issues we didn't know a lot about. So how do you think he's going to make sure that ship gets back to where people's lives don't get lost? He's going to do it. He's going to take it back and release that information to the San Francisco newspaper, and that's exactly what happened. So the details here are very interesting. Let's move back towards the Eddie Gallagher thing, because that was a side note, is Timothy Parlatore, which by the way is now a JAG in the U.S. Navy. It was brought back in on the reserve side of the house, and people question if he's still going to be able to talk about stuff as a defense attorney for his clients while still being a reservist and fulfill both sides of that role in his civilian capacity and also as a naval officer. But it does look like he wasn't too happy with this.
Last week, a photo leaked from the Navy's Chief Petty Officer Leadership Course exposing how partisan ideology has infected our military training. In the ethical paradigm section on truth versus loyalty, the course claims that truth-based decisions are grounded in facts and reality, yet it uses a blatantly falsified version of the Eddie Gallagher case as its example. The Navy's own court-martial acquitted Gallagher of these charges. The witnesses lied under oath. So the Naval Leadership and Ethics Center ignores their own lesson on truth by peddling a lie. The text doesn't hedge or debate. It flatly declares Gallagher guilty and the accusers as truth-tellers, ignoring the verdict entirely. Now, why do I call this political? Whether a war crime happened shouldn't be partisan, and anyone who reviewed the case factually and critically could easily see the same simple and nonpartisan conclusion that the jury saw. But when President Trump defended Gallagher, the media flipped and pushed a false narrative that Trump had backed a war criminal just to smear him. Now this biased spin is force-fed to every chief petty officer in the U.S. Navy. This is the deep rot in our military training that Secretary Hegseth is fighting to eradicate. So when the critics whine that he's politicizing the military by cutting biased content, remember, this is what they're defending. He's not adding politics. He's stripping out the partisan ideology to refocus on facts and reality. The Naval Education and Training Command needs to investigate this now. Hold the authors accountable. Scrap this fiction and teach the real lessons from the Gallagher trial. Ones actually grounded in truth. Our warfighters deserve better.
This case has been so crazy because essentially the fact they offered immunity to his teammates, the fact that this is now in here, the fact that you had prosecutors that were from the Department of Defense's side that were given Navy Achievement Medals, which were later revoked because President Trump was like, why are you getting awards when you didn't actually do something positive? You were proven wrong in this instance. So that was crazy. But some talking is going on in the comments that I think is important from top figures in the veteran space. For example, Sean Ryan from the Sean Ryan Show says, same as every institution in America right now, which is exactly why they are all falling apart. And Eddie responded saying, exactly, you would only hope the institutions of our Department of Defense would be the ones setting the example. And for example, other fellow veterans saying, Bearded Frogman says, funny how the truth was not what they was reported, but those team members. The case study is a lot of example of truth and loyalty. As the truth exposed these members, showing how some can lie for advancement, hide cowardice, and dishonor the Navy, The loyalty part was against Eddie, and the truth was exposed. Great job, Navy. And then this guy, Team Frog Logic, says they just can't effing admit they messed up. And I use this analogy all the time. It is a lot of things that happen with the military, even when they are bad. They will say, like, for example, your house is on fire and you're running out and the sprinklers are going. Instead of just being like, whoa, our entire house caught fire, they'll say, well, at least the sprinklers worked, and applaud for that. And that is kind of the craziness that I see from this. And I'm hoping that we can address factual things head on, correct the course of what has happened, reinstate kind of this like judicial process of respecting that he had his day in court, he was acquitted, and kind of move forward from that. I think it's unfair that we are still judging somebody even though that has been the case. Whether you believe it or not, that's for you on an individual basis. But I think in the black and white, this is a dangerous situation to put them in. I don't know if Eddie Gallagher is planning on suing the Department of War, you know, any of that stuff. I mean, obviously there's a new person in charge in a lot of this, but I hope they get some change for the clarity of what this is going on with. But let me know what you guys think about this down in the comments below.